So hi everyone, you join me at GTS 2023. This is GlobalFoundries Tech Summit here in Europe, and I'm joined by this guy. He's the CEO. Tom, welcome to the channel. I think we should come in to talk closer.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
So I reached out to a bunch of my audience and they had a bunch of questions for you, if you don't mind, if you have the time.
I have the time.
So from my perspective, I'm going to start with my question first because I get priority. We last spoke properly in this format several years ago. You'd just become CEO, and we've been a few years down from there, and we've gone through a pandemic. First question is, how's business?
Well, business for GF over the period of time you're talking about has been really great for our company and our customers and our employees. If you recall, in 2018, we decided to stop chasing Moore's Law, to be a distant third player in that race, and to focus our energies, our R&D, where we really can differentiate products for end markets, which help our customers differentiate their products. They capture values for themselves, and we get to capture some of that value for ourselves. So when I think about the longer range view of this company from 2018 to where we are today, it's been a great journey for GlobalFoundries.
The customers up, revenue's up.
Everything's up and to the right. Profitability is up and to the right. Yeah.
That sounds good. So one thing that I've noticed at this event, and I was also thankfully at the US event a couple of weeks ago, you're no longer referring to some of your production as legacy nodes. You're talking about this concept of essential chips. What's that all about?
Yeah, look, I think our industry is not very good at marketing itself. We went from, there's two types of chips, advanced chips and legacy or mature. And it really doesn't do justice to the level of innovation that goes into these chips. We can't get stuck thinking the only innovation in this industry is driving the scale of transistors. There's tons more innovation that's actually much more relevant, and especially to the world we live in. And so we started to call it feature-rich chips because that's what we're adding. We're adding new features to and taking existing technology platforms and making them more vibrant and germane to the industry. So we went to essential because in the end of the day, without these chips, many of the applications we talk about would never occur. And so they become essential to the end markets.
And I know you guys play a lot in smartphone and automotive, and I saw a slide here today where it's not just leading edge silicon that goes into those devices.
Right, exactly. I maybe get a couple of statistics. So about 70% of the market for semiconductors is 12 nanometers and above. 30% are in single-digit nanometer. Why is that? Look, Moore's Law was always an economic law. First and foremost, it was to scale transistors because you got lower cost per transistor. You also got better power per transistor and better performance. Fast forward 28 nanometer, certainly by 16, 14 nanometer, the economics changed. Cost per transistors went up. So the only reason you would use those technologies is for applications that absolutely demanded either the performance per transistor or the power per transistor. You would never pay more for an application than you needed to. And that really created the pervasive deployment of semiconductors and why these essential chips became even more essential, because they give the right functionality, the right feature set, and at the best economics.
Sounds good. So when we look at the foundry space, there's obviously a number of players, some leading edge, some more essential. Most foundries in your position are expanding. So what is GlobalFoundries doing to expand?
Well, it's all, our business is, as a manufacturing services company, we can only grow revenue by growing more capacity. So let's come back to that in a moment. You're right. There are a number of foundries, but it's a finite number. I would argue there are only 5 foundries in the planet of any scale. Let's choose scale at $2 billion in revenue. That's a pretty low bar, I think, given that in 2022, GlobalFoundries was $8 billion. So who are those 5 foundries? In Taiwan, it's TSMC and UMC. There's GlobalFoundries with our global footprint, Samsung Foundry, and SMIC in China. So we have a high concentration of foundry in one region of the world, Taiwan. Almost 70 to 80% of the capacity is in Taiwan. And on top of that, we have high concentration in one company. TSMC is twice the size of the revenue of the other 4 I just mentioned times 2. Yep. So it's a big concentration. It's a big industrial issue in concentration in one company, concentration in one part of the planet. And so back to your question, we need to add capacity to create scale so our customers continue to rely on us. We've been building out our global footprint. Let's start where I was just 2 weeks ago. In 2021, we put our first pylon in the ground to add capacity at our Singapore facility. In June of 2022, we moved the first tool in, and in July of 2023, we celebrated with a ribbon cutting with this factory's up and running. It added a significant amount of capacity, over 400,000 wafers, to a year of manufacturing to our footprint. In upstate New York, in our Fab 8, we're continuing to build out the floor space there with capacity. We've invested over $1 billion or $1.2 billion over the last couple of years. In Dresden, over the last 2.5 years, we invested $2.4 billion to bring that capacity up. And we recently announced, maybe not so recent, it feels it was recent, but last June, we announced, not this June, June of 2022, a partnership with ST Micro and Kroll, where we'll expand capacity in a joint partnership with them. And so that's the capacity we have in flight. And as more and more opportunity for demand materializes, we'll continue to grow our footprint. And how we do it is we grow globally. And the last thing I would leave you with, we just last week announced, or it was earlier this week actually, we announced the submission to the U.S. CHIPS office expansion plans and co-investments and funding from the U.S. government to continue to grow our footprint in the United States.
So I was going to ask you about that. How much does this CHIPS Act in the U.S. and the EU CHIPS Act affect how you're expanding?
It doesn't affect the timing of when we expand. We will only create capacity when there's certainty of demand. For us, it's about certainty, durability, and profitability. We are not a product company. We only build capacity to serve our customers, and our customers need to commit to that capacity for us to make those investments. And many times we make those investments in concert, in partnership with them. We make investments in capacity in markets that we view are durable. So on technology platforms that we have that serve markets that we think are durable, for example, automotive. And then, of course, like any good company or anybody that makes an investment, we want to get a return on those investments. So profitability is an important part of that investment thesis. So for us, what do European government or U.S. governments or other governments, what do they bring to the table with their desire to create capacity in their regions? They provide some of the funding that helps close that economic model on profitability.
So a lot of people don't realize just how much research goes on in nodes that aren't the leading edge. And again, I've just come out of a presentation where several numbers with lots of letters after them. But can you go into the R&D that GlobalFoundries does on these essential nodes to meet your customers where they want?
So you first start with how dedicated you are to R&D. Well, you vote with your dollars.
Yep.
So somewhere around 7 to 8% of our revenue we put towards R&D, and that represents a few thousand people doing R&D. Now, where do you do the R&D, and how do you choose to do the R&D? For us, we focus on end markets where we think real value can be created. That's differentiated to help our customers serve those markets. And by extension, if we're helping them serve the markets, we could capture value for ourselves. So we do a very, very detailed end market assessment. We call them battlegrounds of where GF can create differentiation. Differentiation comes in the forms of what do we add to the platforms of our technology? Is it high voltage? Is it embedded memory for security for microcontrollers? Right? Is it low power? In the off state for untethered battery powered devices. So we choose the types of features we need to add. Sometimes those features are actually in the software area. It's IP for design, for complex or foundational IP that enables the platform to deliver to those marketplaces. So worldwide, over 2,000 people doing R&D. In Europe alone, we have over 500 people doing R&D. And it's to continue to add features that serve these end markets and build out the platform of our technologies.
Any piece of recent development that makes you feel warm and fuzzy inside?
Warm and fuzzy. I think I'm really excited by our embedded memory technology, especially on the announcement we made recently on our 28 nanometer. Not only does the figure of merit on performance, endurance, reliability of memory is super competitive, we actually create the memory cell with half the mass steps of our competition. So we have a performance benefit and a cost advantage in creating that technology. Those are the kind of things that make it warm and funny. Actually, it gets me really excited.
I think for me, it's the Photonics, the 45 Photonics process. I'm seeing a lot of people wanting to use that and having very few options elsewhere.
I think that's another good one. I don't try to choose my my favorite children, right? But yes, we're the only company that integrates RFSOI, CMOS, and photonic processing on a single die. And that creates huge opportunities in end markets we serve.
The chip shortage caused a lot of havoc in the industry, this whole thing about ensuring a supply chain and then on top of that, a secure supply chain. We're here in Germany, and obviously Germany is a big point for the automotive manufacturers. Using those two bits of information, are we out of the woods in terms of not meeting supply?
Well, let me reflect on that question a little bit before I answer that very last part of it. For me, it was just amazing that you had an entire world economy depending on an industry called semiconductors, and it was obscure. No one really knew about it until you couldn't buy a car or a washing machine or some type of appliance, and everybody said, "What's this semiconductor?" And they learned a lot. They learned the criticality of this technology. And so it did create a lot of havoc, and it created a lot of action to create more capacity. It created action by governments around the world saying, we need to make sure for sovereign security, supply chain security, and economic security that we create some of this capacity in our own country. So it created a froth of activity. But I think that was a reflection of just how important semiconductors are to the world and to the world economy. So where are we from a supply-demand mismatch? It's a very tough question in that all these end markets have different unique attributes and different types of supply. I would say the auto industry is much better and balanced than where it was in 2021. But I think we're still in a point for the types of chips that are needed. And given the transformation from internal combustion engine cars to autonomous connected and electrified cars, the types of chips needed to do that are still going to be chasing that capability for some time to come, but much better aligned than where we were in 2021.
Yeah, it's. I speak to other companies in the industry, and they say, yeah, we're trying to meet as much demand as possible, but it's still going to be a few years out. And these are your customers and everybody else.
So you confirm my answer?
Yes, I can confirm. So the current boom in chips right now, especially in the media, is this whole thing about artificial intelligence and machine learning. We've just spoken about these, essential nodes, but typically when we talk about machine learning, we talk about training and the need for these high-density, high-performance chips. So where does GlobalFoundries meet the market in machine learning?
I think the big opportunity for AI is what we call intelligence at the edge. And the simplest way to put it is the cloud will do the training of these large models, but these large models, the inference, will take place at the edge. It's too costly. Economics don't work to try to do everything in the cloud. Remember, at the edge, that's where something is sensed. The analog world comes in. Is it an image? Is it a sound? Is it heat? Something gets sensed and needs to be acted upon. That acting is the inference from some model that was securely put on that device. That device senses this analog world and does something with that information, takes an action, takes the data, parses it, compresses it, sends it to the cloud. After a certain amount of data has been accumulated, those models get retrained. And so when you think about the future of AI, cloud will be where models are trained and generated. Inference will take place at the edge. And the two of those will be very powerful because you'll have the ability to have all your appliances, all your devices, whether it's your smartphone, your display, your television, your computer, will be all AI enabled. And that's because the inference will take place at that device for quick response to whatever signal or sensing it has.
And GlobalFoundries is going to play mostly at the edge, you reckon?
We like to be the leader in the edge, the inference at the edge.
And infrastructure?
Infrastructure is super important, especially when we think about infrastructure for energy and infrastructure for communications.
Yep.
We have the leading technology for RF communication, whether it's short-range Bluetooth NFC, mid-range Wi-Fi, or for cell tower-based in a millimeter wave or 5G, where our technology is the heart of that, both from an infrastructure side and the smart mobile side.
If there's one thing you want the people watching to know about GlobalFoundries in sort of 20 seconds, what would it be?
It would be that innovation can't narrowly be defined by transistor scaling. Yes, it's a necessary and sufficient or a necessary part of the technology requirements of our industry, but it's nowhere sufficient. That these essential chips, the types of features we add, bring life to all the appliances we use. You use secure pay on your mobile device. Well, guess who makes those devices? Yep. GlobalFoundries does, right? Because we put embedded memory in a microcontroller that has NFC connectivity, so that it has a secure element to make sure that your transactions are done in a secure way. When your cell phone connects to a 5G tower, that's all the silicon GF makes. Not made on a single-digit nanometer, but made on differentiated essential chips that build out these features for those mission-critical applications.
So here we go into the after show. Here's some pointy questions for you that we didn't share in advance.
This is like Bill Maher overtime.
Oh, absolutely. What happened to the EUV machines that you had in Malta? Because I was there when they were being installed.
When we pivoted the company in 2018, we had no need for those machines. I believe we sold one to a research organization, and the other one ASML took back, refurbished it, and sold it to someone else. Took back, gave us some number of cents on the dollar.
there was a restocking fee.
Yes, very steep one.
What's happened to 12FDX?
12FDX is in our roadmap. Again, creating a technology well ahead of the market doesn't serve anybody. For us, it's making sure that we develop these technologies for the future in partnership with a customer with a specific end use in mind. So we continue to keep 12FDX on our roadmap. We continue to engage customers to make sure the definition of that technology, where we're going to spend our R&D, is critical to an end market.
So this week, you recently announced a new office, new development in Penang, Malaysia. Why not Singapore?
So what we're trying to create is a global footprint, flexible. The Penang facility services all the fabs around the world. The Singapore team is for the Singapore team. And so we've trying to take a global network of fabs and have them run in a way that feels like they're virtual single fab. So there's certain things we do locally at the site level, regionally, say in the region, European Union would be an example, and things we do globally. The Malaysia site is part of how we want to manage some of the engineering globally.
Sounds good. Now we turn to Twitter.
Why, is this live?
Now we turn to the Twitter questions are really good. Let's go through these. Are there any technologies on the horizon that would imply analog signal density increases?
It's really difficult to compress or shrink analog.
Yes.
And that's why some of these essential nodes stay around for a long time, because shrinking them, if you don't have enough digital content in a design, you don't get very much shrink. So mostly it's about how to integrate analog with digital in the most holistic way.
Do you have plans to bring photonics down to 22 and 12 nanometer?
Right now, we don't see the need of the feature size that's driving the roadmap. It's more about adding more of the photonics compute capability than the size of the transistors doing that.
That's a good answer. When will GlobalFoundries be the number one foundry?
In my lifetime. So it depends how you want to define number one. If it's in revenue dollars, well, we have a long way to go. Our competition is 8 times bigger than us. But if it's number one in innovating around essential chips, I think hard to argue we're not already number one on that.
And a final pointy one, if I may. Recently, Intel failed in acquiring Tower. There's some regulatory issues there. Anything between Intel and GlobalFoundries to note?
Oh, I don't comment any kind of rumors or anything like that, but nice try.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Tom. Thank you for being a great sport.
Thank you. Appreciate it.